Hey guys, it's me Mr. 250 and welcome back to Danganronpa 2. Left off right here last time, and we've been tasked with investigating the building, trying to figure out what's going on. So we might as well get started. I'm assuming we got access... Oh, 5th floor, wow. Just like jumped right there. I thought we were actually going to search. I didn't think it was going to just be on rails. Huh? That's weird. This is the hallway I walked through to get to the gymnasium, but it's clearly different. Is this Monokuma's doing too? Is he trying to confuse us again? I don't know how he's doing it, but he keeps doing it over and over again. He's so persistent. But I'm not gonna fall for his trap. There's no way this will make me back down. Wow, that really does a number to the frame rate. Kind of limited in where we can search. This hallway, there's a strange feeling to it, no? As if an invisible wall has been erected to limit our movement.
I am concerned.
Is it just me? I mean, it hasn't stopped me yet. So they seem to limit our movement somewhat. We can go into the dojo. But some of our other ways are locked off. Oh man, this place looks spooky. Raw! I always felt like that this hallway was a little too plain, so I'm glad they added something to it. Guess we could check out the dojo. That's about the only place we can go. Is this a dojo? It's full of strange things that make me think there's no way we're inside a school. Perhaps it's a mistake to expect the inside of this building to make sense. Does this monitor serve the same purpose as the monitors on the island? If so, this would be under Monokuma's supervision, right? Is this place really Hope's Peak Academy? Dang it, what's going on? It's armor and a helmet. Did the map developers design this to reflect a Japanese dojo? What? Fourth wall, please. It's broken everywhere. There are a bunch of wooden lockers here. Each of them is a traditional looking woodblock key sticking out of them. I guess they're just for show. There's nothing in particular that looks like a clue. There's a straw post. I guess it means it was used for training. The cherry tree is proudly displaying its full blossoms. The falling petals add to the elegance of the scene. If Hiyoko and Pekka were here, it would have truly looked picturesque. For their sakes as well, I will definitely go home. The target seems pretty far away. If the production team had gotten more time, there could have been a minigame here. Wait, what am I saying? Fourth wall, please. This cherry tree is in full bloom. Maybe a tasteful sight to see a blooming cherry tree inside a dojo. But in this situation, it just looks bizarre. What's this? Is this a manga? The title is Manga for Morons, The History of Hope's Peak Academy by Monokuma. Thanks. Is that your research? You just dropped a book? Why is a manga with such a suspicious-looking title laying out in the open like this? Let's start with history first, class.
Hey,
Reading manga is the third best way to learn about history. Then what's the first, you ask? That depends on the person. So just as I thought, Monokuma made this. That totally explains how suspicious it looks. I really want to just ignore it, but there's no way I can do that. Fine, I'll look at it. I'll look at anything that might be a clue to getting out of here, no matter what it is. I picked up the manga off the floor and started flipping through the pages. It's an introduction to Hope's Peak Academy's history, as narrated by the cutesy character on the cover. The story begins with an introduction to Hope's Peak Academy. Hope's Peak Academy is a government-funded school of privilege, where only the most talented high school students can hope to attend. Built to raise hope in the nation's future, many of its alumni are key leaders of various industries. New students are chosen through a scouting process, but the ones who scout them are Hope's Peak Academy's teachers, who serve as both educators and researchers of talent. Hope's Peak Academy isn't just a school for talent, it is also a school for researching talent as well. However, for the past few years, Hope's Peak Academy has been suffering from a decline in funding. If this persists, the Academy believes that they will not be able to make progress with their research of talent. So they decided to implement a new system, the Reserve Department. Unlike the main department who scouts for students, the Reserve Department utilizes a general entrance exam. Normal faculty was hired and placed in charge of looking after the Reserve Department. The expenses and exam fees for the Reserve Department are quite high compared to most high schools. Nevertheless, Hope's Peak Academy received an endless stream of applicants. Hope's Peak Academy was now available to talentless commoners, people who only cared about the brand. With this, Hope's Peak Academy managed to amass sizable funds and began furthering research of talent. To create Hope's Peak Academy's earnest wish, a true genius who would become mankind's hope. That doesn't sound evil at all. But just when they thought everything was going well, an unprecedented incident occurred. The incident that triggered the tragedy. The biggest, most awful, most tragic event in human history. That's right. It was the tragedy of Hope's Peak Academy. Hope's Peak Academy was crippled by this incident and was forced to shut down without accomplishing anything. The end. Oh, that was a great story. Huh? The ending was so sudden, like a manga that's suddenly canceled in the middle of its run. Plus these phrases mentioned at the end of this manga. The tragedy, and the tragedy of Hope's Peak Academy. These names are so melodramatic. There's no way these incidents actually happened, right? This manga only mentions the names, so I don't really know the details, but no, it'd just be a waste of time to wonder about things that don't make sense. More importantly, I learned something because of this manga. The Reserve Department. The department was only built to collect money. I was one of those Reserve Corps students, right?
but hold on.
That's weird. Oh, you're here again. The thing that's weird is you, of course. Huh?
Hey!
Why did you forget that you were part of the Reserve Department? The Future Foundation only took away your school life memories, right? But you should have known even before you entered that you had no talent, right? So I think it's weird that you actually forgot something like that too. What do you want me to say?
By the way...
Based on my assumption, the Future Foundation must have wanted to hide the fact that you were one of those Reserve Corps students.
I got it!
Ooh, or you willingly sealed those memories yourself. Huh? You wanted to be confident in yourself. You wanted to forget everything that embarrassed you. You know, when humans experience trauma, sometimes they erase their memory of what happened. It happens pretty often. Not that I'd know anything about that, though. Are you saying it's my fault that I forgot? That's not it.
Come on!
When things get inconvenient, you always get angry and try to brush it off. Well, that's expected of a reserve course student. Dang it, what the heck? Sure, that'll be important for later. Is there anywhere else we can go? I think I looked at everything in there. Oh, you weren't here before.
What's going on?
This hallway is kind of creepy. I can't go to places that I should be able to go to. It's like some rule is being enforced for no reason. It's like there's an invisible wall or something. Oh, this door's open now. This wasn't open before. This isn't research. This is more like Monokuma dropped some books around. Go find them. This is another manga. It's laying on top of the desk. This one is Manga for Morons. The Tragedy of Hope's Peak Academy. Huh. Wasn't the Tragedy of Hope's Peak Academy mentioned in that other manga too? It's why Hope's Peak Academy went bankrupt, and it was the trigger for the biggest, most tragic, most awful event in human history. I feel like we're going to be hearing that a lot today. If I read this manga, will I be able to learn a little more about that incident? I took the manga from the desk and started flipping through the pages to see what I could learn about the event known as the Tragedy of Hope's Peak Academy. The story made heavy use of outdated stylized drawings, depicting characters solving mysteries. What's written here is, as the name suggests, the Tragedy of Hope's Peak Academy occurred at Hope's Peak Academy. The key player in that event was a student named Izuru Kamukura. Izuru was a genius known as a symbol of hope. Hope's Peak Academy used all their resources to develop him. Supposedly, Izuru was a genius among geniuses, and possessed various talents. Wielding superior talent for the hope of mankind, the Academy referred to Izuru as the ultimate hope. To protect such rare talent, the Academy completely concealed all evidence of Izuru's origins and identity. Because of that, most of the students at the Academy were completely unaware of Izuru's existence. But Izuru, who was known as the symbol of hope, was responsible for a horrible incident. 13 students of Hope's Peak Academy's student council, among the Academy's best and brightest, were brutally murdered by Izuru. However, the incident did not end there. The Academy tried to protect Izuru's superior talent and concealed the incident as though it never happened. However, a certain student began working in secret to use that incident to their advantage. That student uncovered what the Academy did, and by making that knowledge public, it stoked the fires of the reserve corps students, who had long been dissatisfied with how they'd been treated. And the uprising began. And that heralded Hope's Peak Academy's destruction. This is the entirety of the Tragedy of Hope's Peak Academy. Eventually, that incident would lead to that horrifying, devastating incident. The incident that would be known as the biggest, most awful, most tragic event in human history. Even worse than Hitler. We're excited. Danganronpa/0. With a heavy sigh, I closed the manga. Am I supposed to believe this? There's no way 13 people were killed at Hope's Peak Academy. What irony. For a genius known as the Ultimate Hope to cause such a gruesome incident. A talent like that is too regal for society. It's like trying to buy juice with a bar of gold. You should be lucky that you're incompetent. Dang it, he always has to lead up to something offensive. But Ultimate Hope. Nagito mentioned that before too. But it looks like it means something completely different here. What Nagito said was the true meaning of hope. But for Izuru, hope simply meant talent. More importantly, a genius who possesses various talents. I wish they'd given me one of those talents so I didn't have to be in the reserve department. That's right, the reserve department. Here it said that the reserve corps students in the reserve department began uprising. Then what about me? Was I a participant too? No, that's not possible. There's no way. I'd have no reason to do something like that. Anyway, I've learned about the tragedy of Hope's Peak Academy, but the biggest, most awful, most tragic event in human history is a far worse incident, right? What kind of incident was it? And who's this other student that isn't Izuru? A certain student who secretly used the incident to their advantage. Who is that? This incident is really messed up, but all it's doing is raising more questions. The mysteries just keep piling up. Oh, I do need to keep a lookout for any hidden Monokumas, don't I? You gotta catch them all, as it were. So I'm assuming we're basically going to look at the rooms one by one as they open to us. About to say, I'm glad they locked that room off. All the dead bodies. What the heck is with this room? It's freaking cold in here. It's like I'm in a freezer or something. If I just stand still, I might end up freezing to death. I should hurry up and investigate so I can get out of here already. Looks like a plastic tarp. Why is this left out like this? Clean up after yourselves, will you? I don't care about the tarp. Wonder if the monitors all say the same. Yeah, they do. What about the camera? I haven't looked at the camera yet. This is a surveillance camera. Why would there be a surveillance camera inside the school? I wonder, does this have the same purpose as the surveillance cameras on Jabberwock Island? If so, who's watching us? Is it whoever's controlling Monokuma? I've seen this in movies before. It's a refrigerator for preserving dead bodies. At least that's what it looks like, but that's not possible, right? Keeping dead bodies in a high school biolab isn't something you should joke about. It just feels so forced. The idea should have been canceled during development or something. What am I thinking? Oh, there you are, Hidden Monokuma. I almost totally missed him.
I've been found.
Indeed you have. You should be ashamed of yourself, found so easily. There's another manga just laying around here. This time, the title is, I can already read it, Manga for Morons, the biggest, most awful, most tragic event in human history. I knew it. The next one would obviously be about this incident. The biggest, most awful, most tragic event in human history, huh? Just what was that incident really all about? It might turn out to be something lame. I flipped through the pages of the manga and hoped I was right. They got swirly Nagito background. A story about creepily drawn characters who get involved in such horrifying incidents. An incident known as the biggest, most awful, most tragic event in human history. Is this drawn so grotesquely because the incident itself is that grotesque? Anyway, the beginning of this creepy manga starts with a sentence. The tragedy of Hope's Peak Academy was simply the trigger. At first, the uprising by the Reserve Corps students that triggered the tragedy of Hope's Peak Academy was initially hoped to be resolved quickly, but the situation continued to escalate to dangerous extremes. The movement started spreading all over the internet and fostered a thriving online community. The community was not limited to students, and people of various races and nations began joining in. But the movement was not confined to the internet and began spreading and eroding the real world. When the movement started, it was indistinguishable from any other demonstration inspired by social unrest. But as it spread across the world, certain abnormalities soon came to light. By then it was too late. The ends and means had vanished, and wanton destruction became their only goal. The strong butchered the weak. The weak killed the weakest among them. And soon the weak formed factions to brutally murder the strong. As the violence and death continued to spread, the shock of their actions began to disappear. As if the area was regressing to a more civilized time, when senseless deaths were the norm. The media was oversaturated with deaths to the point where people would watch them while enjoying a meal. By the time the world realized what it had become, it was too late to stop what had happened. A feeling of immense despair began spreading and eventually engulfed the world. Why? Acts of terrorism and that's a word I'm not super familiar with, began occurring around the world. A war waged in the name of despair. A war fought not for principles, religion, or personal gain. Just war. Pure war. And because of that, there was no way to resolve it. How could a movement started by high school students progress to such a hopeless scenario? The only explanation is the existence of a certain organization devoted to a certain student who influenced Hope's Peak Academy. A group called Ultimate Despair. Instead of using Hope's Peak Academy's talents for the sake of mankind's hope, they use them for the sake of mankind's despair. Key members of society use their influence to brainwash the masses in order to spread despair. Tech-savvy computer programmers wrote software to spread despair. You've got mail. You're ugly. Oh no! The powerful and influential created new values and morals to spread despair. And with this, they created the tragedy. The biggest, most awful, most tragic event in human history. As long as ultimate despair exists, the despair engulfing the world will never end. The tragedy will never end. My heart was racing in my chest, but my body felt ice cold. And it wasn't because I was freezing in this room. The biggest, most awful, most tragic event in human history. This is definitely all made up. Definitely. I mean, if this is really true, then what's happening in the outside world? My family, my friends, the convenience store I frequent, the nearby bookstore, my favorite restaurant. What's happened to them?
No way!
Hey, are you seriously yelling at a manga? How crazy are you? Who would enjoy reading something like this?
What?
Oh my, you don't like manga? A high school student who doesn't like manga is like an office lady who doesn't like to eat candy. Enough. What's with this messed up manga? I thought you'd obviously know about such a horrible event that destroyed the world, but for you not to remember that, such despair. That's the Future Foundation's fault, though, thanks to them stealing your school memories. The incident that happened during that period has been completely removed from your brains. This incident really happened, and I actually forgot about it? There's no way that's possible.
What are you saying?
How many times do I have to tell you? All the clues here are real.
Hello.
Please understand, I'm rooting for you. If you don't learn about the full extent of the outside world, you guys will suffer for it. I just want to help you guys so you can live well-adjusted lives in the outside world. I see. So that's how it is. That's what he meant by what he said at the beginning. Well, as the headmaster, I'm conflicted, you know. On one hand, I'm really happy that you're finally going to graduate. But on the other hand, I'm worried about whether you guys will be okay in the outside world. That's why I'm thinking about telling you what the outside world is like before you make a decision. Whether you want to leave Jabberwock Island, or stay here. He's trying to make us feel despair towards the outside world, so we'll want to stay on this island. But there's no way I'm going to do what he wants. Despair like that simply can't exist. The outside world should be filled with hope. Just like now. Perhaps... No, that's definitely it. The tragedy. Whether or not this incident really happened, what in the world is this ultimate despair group? If they're devoted to a certain student who guided Hope's Big Academy to its destruction, are they connected to both the tragedy and the tragedy of Hope's Big Academy? Plus, that organization isn't just one person, but a group of people. But if they're known as Ultimate Despair, they're high school students, right? Well, if they were actually able to do it, then I guess that's why they were called Ultimates. Then, are the killings we're involved in connected to them as well? It's no use. I'm going to freeze to death. I'm at my limit. I need to get out of here. Shivering, I ran out of the freezing room. Oh, that was close. I nearly froze to death. So where should I go next? Probably that way. But yeah, I'll stop here for today. I hope you guys enjoyed. I actually might pick up on doing the rest of these tomorrow, so you might actually see all of these before I leave. So the stuff that comes after this should all be while I'm gone, I think. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time for some more Danganronpa 2. Bye!